Hello, welcome to the One Life Podcast, where we talk about things from One Life Church, but ultimately things we think can relate to you and your one and only life. I'm one of your co-hosts, Sarah Inman, and I'm joined, as always, and we're back with Brett Nicholson.
We are back after a 3-week break, which I think is our longest break ever, and I feel kind of sort of guilty.
Yeah.
I do. I feel kind of bad.
It's kind of, there's just some things going on, and we needed a couple weeks
on,
there.
Yeah.
And
holidays got in the way and all the rest. So.
Thanksgiving, yeah. How was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was fantastic. It really was. I mean, it was. We didn't do anything that, no bells or whistles or anything. We did the turkey, we did the dressing, we did family, we did everything you're supposed to do. And it was good. I was glad.
Yeah, same here. It was nice to, a very small gathering this year. Just my mom, my stepdad, and I, and then my brother and his girlfriend and their kids came by for a little bit. And
all right.
It was, it was good. But I have some stories about that I think we can talk about later. Some things from gratitude as we talk about our new series.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about it later, though.
Yeah, I wanted to hear some of your stories, but then also I had one of my own, because we talked about that as a staff today, like some of the things that we're grateful for. And I just think those are fun. I think that's good to do as we're talking about that as a staff, and really even our church asking people to do that. So actually I've seen some people on the One Life Anywhere page today sharing some things they're grateful for.
All right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That means it's working.
It is, yeah. That's something that, here at One Life, we've been trying to figure out ways, just like everybody else, like how do you get to connect in this time where people are disconnected physically pretty much all the time. And we came up with a Facebook group. It seems kind of simple and maybe something that's done maybe already, but we came up with a place where people can have conversation. They can be a part of community. It's not a place where we think about Facebook pages where you go to and you see all these events or things that we want people to do or know. It really is just a space for people to have conversation. And one of those right now is things you're grateful for.
Yeah, and that is a great conversation to have because it helps your mind to focus on better things.
Yeah. So One Life Anywhere on Facebook, you can search for it, request to join it. We're trying to get to 1,000. I think we're around 600, 700.
600?
So,
okay. Yeah. So we just, please do. And go on there twice to help us get to that goal. Come on under a pseudonym. You could do all kinds of things. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
So Brett, we started a new series. We ended a series. I guess we should talk about that too. We just ended our other series, which honestly, I said this to you in the office with no one. I think there was maybe just one other person around in our office, but now I'm going to say it on the podcast. It really was one of my favorite series that we've done.
You did say that. I remember that. I was like, why? I did ask why.
Yeah, it was called Talking Points, and anyone can find that on our website, onelifechurch.org, or you can find it on our YouTube page, where we're actually growing there a lot, have a lot of great content on our YouTube page. Search for One Life Church. But I think because going into it, some of these conversations, we talk about politics, we talk about relationships, these things are tough, especially in 2020, more than ever. And you came up with some things you were going to talk about, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's he going to say? As the communications director, I think of those things, how are people going to respond?
That's right.
And it was great. It really was great. There was nothing that I was like, that, I don't know, I wasn't surprised, but also surprised in the sense of so many conversations about politics right now feel so volatile or so just heavy and so much information. And this just felt very rooted into the simple things that we kind of just needed to get back to.
Well, hopefully. I do appreciate that. I remember in a couple of evals, you said, okay, I'll admit I was a little nervous about this one going into it when you knew what we were going to talk about. But I'm okay now. I'm okay now. And I think that was part of the point, was there is a way to talk about these things that it doesn't have to descend into that sort of dark side that we often get into. Because I realize people are passionate, and I don't knock that. But I think the primary message that I kept reinforcing, and I went in with this idea, but I discovered it more as I went along because we were trying to focus on the Sermon on the Plain, which it always takes you to another place. It keeps pushing you to just a different way to think about things. When it says things like love your enemies, you can't really be a jerk towards your enemies. It just kind of goes with that, or the people you disagree with. So I kept getting reminded that it's got to be about the kingdom first, and it can't be about your own political affiliations first. And if you'll keep remembering that, it'll help you to handle your political affiliations better, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and I think we got a shout out from your niece, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, that's right. I showed
Thanks
you
for listening. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you very much for listening.
That.
That's right.
Again, you can find that information, previous series or any of our content on our website or on our YouTube page. But we did just start a brand new series. And that's something that, if you attend One Life, obviously this might pertain to you. But even if you don't, I think everyone can understand and relate to the topic of our series, which is called Merry Christmas Anyway.
Right.
which is great.
I think everybody gets the reference. Yes.
Even in 2020, it's still Christmas, and
It is.
in the midst of all finding beauty in difficulty. I said that backwards.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas anyway. So tell us a little bit about that series, kind of the hope for what we're trying to talk about.
Well, the hope is just that. I know, and I get tired of saying it in a way because it's almost cliche now that, okay, 2020 has been rough, but it really has. And especially for me, and I think this is a lot of people, I anticipated it getting better sooner. And now that we're sitting in November and cases are going up and there's more talk about the COVID than there was earlier in some weird sense. And so that gets wearying. I mean, it honestly is. It's taxing on my own mind. And I think it makes everybody tired and frustrated. And then I really hurt for people who are struggling with whether it's job or obviously their health or any of those kinds of things. So what can we do with that now that it's gone on for a while? So the basic idea is Christmas coming up. Christmas is supposed to be hopeful. It's supposed to be something where we're singing joy to the world, right? Yeah. Well, how do we find that without denying the difficulties? That's the critical thing. I don't like it whenever people just act like something's not going wrong or talk over it or sweep it under the rug. I think it's good to acknowledge this is a dark, draggy thing that's going on over here, but how can you have joy in the midst of that? How can you find meaning or deeper things? Because I really believe you can, because I've been around, and a lot of it is I've been inspired by people who obviously have gone through really, really tough things, or I'll visit people in the hospital that are going through an obviously tough thing, but their perspective is such that they still have this underlying joy, and this that doesn't deny the hard thing, but just rises above it. And so that's the kind of thing that we're after. How do you do that? Where does that come from?
How to be an optimist in some of these ways, right?
Or you could sum it up in that way. Yeah. Of course, I'm a big believer in the saying that a pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist waits for the wind to get better, and the realist adjusts the sails. And so, that's right. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
I haven't.
But so I like to consider myself a realist with an optimistic bent.
Okay.
So how can you do that? Because again, I don't want to deny. This can be rough. I talked to somebody just yesterday at our church whose hours have been cut way back, and was just kind of worried about, man, what am I going to do here? I've got a veteran bill that's due coming up, and I've blown through my savings. And things are getting kind of spooky for people, and so you don't want to deny that, but you also want to help that person not only with their physical needs, but also find joy in the middle of it all, rather than waiting for when my bills get paid, I'll get joy back. And that's always the tension and the challenge that we have to wrestle with. All of us do.
Yeah, and one of the things that you've asked our church to start thinking about and doing, we had a couple ideas how we're going to do this, and of course they always kind of simplify to what we can do, whether that's based upon finances, but also based upon what we can do right now, like handing things out is not something that we're going to do a ton of, because majority of our people are watching through a digital platform, which is super cool in a sense. It also feels weird because there was a time where you thought that was just something you do. Now it's kind of something you're focusing on, which is really interesting. But we're talking about having a gratitude journal of sorts. And we initially talked about, like, can we get little journals and we hand them out to people? Like, oh, we probably can't do that right now.
Yeah. Not to mention they were kind of expensive too, so it's okay.
But, the idea of going through and just simplifying the way that you think about it. You said either you first get up or right before you go to bed, just talking about, even in your mind, but even writing down some things that you're grateful for that day.
Yeah, because I've heard, first of all, I know that counselors do that for people who are struggling with depression or anxiety. They will have them do a gratitude journal. So that's where some of the idea comes from. The other place it comes from is honestly from Scripture, because what I've noticed through the years as I've studied the Bible, and I have the advantage of, I have my own devotional time, but I also have the advantage I do it for a living, so it's kind of like you have to spend time in there. And I realized how much the Bible focuses on gratitude, and it says things like give thanks always. And I, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I almost think that the simple message of gratitude is treated as just that. It's kind of a simple message. Like, yeah, we should give thanks. We tell little kids, what do you say, Johnny, when someone gives them a gift or whatever. And it feels like this lightweight thing that you ought to do. But what I've recognized, the more I've studied it, is it's actually a profound thing that has a lot underneath. Why would God tell you to give thanks in all things? Why would he say that? And I've discovered more and more, I think, the reasons why, and science is now backing that up. There are tons of studies. You can just go Google it sometime. Just say, scientific research behind gratitude, and you'll find just article after article after article of studies they've done that says gratitude literally does help you mentally, physically, emotionally, and otherwise as a regular practice in your life. So that's what we're really trying to get people into the practice of. I was coach years ago, I don't remember who did it, but try to make thank you the very first words you say when you get up in the morning. So it really does change your perspective and your outlook on things, because you're going to think about something and you're going to say something to yourself or someone else. And then oftentimes when you're tired and the alarm's going off, it's not a good thing. So why not just flip the script on that and say something that's positive, like, hey, Lord, thank you for that I'm breathing in and out, or I can get up and walk around, or I can see or feel or hear or relate, or that I got a good night's sleep or whatever.
It resets your mind in a sense too.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
Like you said, doing in the morning, our staff retreat, which was a few months back, we did outside at a lake, which was great. We were able to be outside, but I remember we start out, around a campfire type thing. I remember it being something you had us do when we started out each week or each morning of the 2 days that we had visited out there. And I remember thinking that it was just a really good kind of reset, because we come in and we have all these things that we need to plan and go through for the next year or plan for the rest of the year, because we have no idea, what's coming next. But even when you think about, like, you can just stop and just saying thankful for things like being able to hear, the water rushing, or, the smell of a campfire, or things that you can even just take a moment and you just take for granted and be able to appreciate in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's what it is. That's why I've called gratitude is the art of noticing. And it really is. It's noticing the things that you have throughout your day, even the smallest things of all, that if they were removed, you would care about, notice. Now, and COVID is now a very obvious example of that, because we have had taken away from us a much more free. I don't know if you've had this experience or not. Well, like when you're watching TV or movies now, and you see people in crowds, it kind of weirds you out a little bit. It's like, they're doing something wrong. How are they comfortable with that?
They don't know what they're doing. They can't touch each other. They can't hug each other.
That's right. They're all, and we used to live that way, and now we can't like we used to. That would have been something to be grateful for, just to be able to stand in a crowd of people and enjoy yourself and not think about having to wear a mask or any of that kind of thing. So it's the art of noticing. So it is. It's the smell of a fire. Everybody knows the smell of a campfire. It can be the smallest things in life. And that's why I think I said list off 10 things, because the first thing, 10, well, if you start noticing, you can name off 10. It's pretty easy. It can be anything from your health or your surroundings. But as you do that, it really, truly does change your mindset overall about life. You become a lot more joyful about the present life that you have. And it's a great mental and emotional effect. It really is.
Yeah, I think in psychology, they call that a grounding, like trying to ground yourself to realize like where you're at, because you can think about all the things that are going on, but if you don't notice the things around you or even where you're at in that moment, you can get just really outside of yourself. And so being able to ground yourself on that.
Yeah, and I remember being coached years ago too, that there is a mental thing inside every person, that it's just the way our brains work, is that we tend to notice problems before solutions or good things. For instance, they use the example, you could walk in a room that had 100 light bulbs and 99 of them will be on. But if there's one off, you're going to notice the one. You just are. It's kind of how our brains are built, but you need to counteract that, because you also need to celebrate, hey, there's 99 light bulbs up there that are working.
That's a good point.
And so learning to look at life that way is not denial of reality. Yes, there is a light bulb that's out, but on the other hand, I can appreciate the fact that there's a whole bunch of them are on, so everything's going to be okay. It really is.
And I remember that our friend Austin Maxheimer, who's been on the podcast multiple times, and I remember in a group I was in with him early on, we had like 4 straight weeks where everyone was there and it was great. And you get a couple weeks where there'd be like 2 people there, and you can get yourself really down of like, why is no one coming? And his line was like, you focus on the people who are there, not the people who aren't. Because you miss a whole opportunity of conversation and connection. That I remember doing that in student ministry. There was a couple times where my co-leader and I, just one girl that would show up, and you're like, oh man, it's a bummer. But in a sense, you ended up with this great conversation that never would have happened if everyone would have been there, and you get more of a one-on-one. So finding those ways to be grateful, and we've kind of interchanged this word, and I want to talk about this, the difference or the similarities between being grateful and being thankful, because we just came out of Thanksgiving, and I think everyone's head kind of, when you say grateful, you think of thankful,
right,
interchangeably. Do you think of them that way?
I think of it as interchangeable. I think of thanks as kind of the action verb or the action word or verb, and then gratitude. I think of gratitude as the overall attitude of an attitude of gratitude. So it's the overall.
Just hit my mic. Sorry,
you sure did, and it echoed. It kind of kept going, but it accentuated my point. So I really appreciated that. So I use them interchangeable, but I think of gratitude as kind of the overarching attitude that you do have that gives thanks a lot or something.
What's funny is this article I have pulled up about it. It says it the opposite. Like they flipped
it says the opposite?
Well,
it's probably wrong. I don't know what kind of articles you're reading. But,
yeah. The Oxford Dictionary defines the word grateful as showing an appreciation of kindness.
Okay.
And this person says that the difference lies being thankful is a feeling and grateful is an action.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I had not known that. Well, maybe I need to clean up my understanding of that. Because I did. Of course, I was not comparing grateful and thankful. It was more gratitude versus thanks.
That's a good point.
In my own head, I was doing that. But grateful for a kindness. I don't know. That's something for people to grapple with. I really don't know what the answer is.
And they were just saying that, you can be thankful about kind of specific things, and grateful and gratitude is something that's more of like a feeling or an action that is kind of something that you build upon. It continues to be part of things, where thankful can feel like it's in and out.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's what this article said. I don't know.
Well, they're probably right. Where's the article from? Is it from your cousin or
psychiatricmedicalcare.com?
Psychiatric medical care. Okay.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker. But anyway, that was the first article that came up on Google when I looked at the differences.
I told people to look up articles. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good.
Yeah. But I just think that's interesting because really we made what we call a bumper, which is the video that plays before usually the message of our services. And the idea that I had in my head when we were thinking about this bumper was like, I'd love to get people just quickly saying something they're grateful for and using that as the opener, and then changing it each week with different people, because there's a lot of things to be grateful for, because we're talking about, kind of this tongue-in-cheek, Merry Christmas anyway, but generally we want people to know that there's still a lot of things to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
In the midst of this. And so we recorded those, and every time we'd say to somebody like, okay, say I'm grateful for, and then whatever you want to say. If you want to use one word, if you want to use a couple things, if you want to tell a short story. And I'd say 90% of the people would say, I'm thankful for, and they'd use the word thankful immediately. And it just made me wonder, I'm like, I wonder how many times we interchange that word and those words, and really what that means about us. But then also,
it makes me wonder, like I always assume it's just because I'm old. Because like my grandma used to always say, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful. Is it older people say grateful and younger people say thankful? Is that a thing? That grateful sounds more formal in my mind, just as a language thing. I don't know if that's, maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but it seems like older people would say grateful and younger people say thankful. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Part of your research.
It wasn't. No, I was just looking at definitions.
We'll never know.
But definition of grateful: feeling or showing an appreciation for something done or received. Which is interesting. And then thankful was pleased and relieved, expressing gratitude and relief. So thankful has gratitude in the definition.
Wow, okay.
Now we're real confused.
I don't know if the world's ever going to know. Yeah, that's right. Hopefully we can nail that down before the series is over.
Yeah,
Make an official statement.
We'll make that part of the episode conversation each week. So if you have, if you're listening to this, watching this right now, if you want to be a part of this conversation, you can email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org.
Or you might want us to move on and say, that may be it too.
So moving on.
Chime in your thoughts.
I got Brett just told me to move on. I got it. We're moving on to the next thing though. But no, I do want to just go through and as we kind of close out this episode, just sharing some things that either one of us would say we're grateful for. And I'll go first because I have a couple.
All right, because you're already locked and loaded on it.
Yeah, I have one. We were talking about this specifically from Thanksgiving, and even in the midst of it being kind of an odd Thanksgiving for me, it was kind of this weird bittersweet. Like I was able to just go to my mom's. I didn't go to my dad's family this year, and there was something that I missed about that, but there's also something kind of sweet to be able to just be in one place, because a lot of times I'm going a couple different places, and I was able to just kind of, my mom and I cooked together, and then normally I'm rushing around to try to get to the next place, and this time I really just got to eat, and we cleaned up, and then I went and sat on the couch and watched football, and it was great. So that was great. But the other one, my favorite thing that I really was grateful for, was the night before. My mom and I usually do a lot of the prep work for Thanksgiving. And we had just finished, and we sat down at the table, and she said, "You want a piece of pie?" And I was like, "The pie's for Thanksgiving?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, there for Thanksgiving. And she's like, it's just us. Who cares? You want pie? And I'm like, let's eat the pie. And we ate pie the night before.
That's right. In
like,
violation of all the rules and everything.
Rules.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I mean, in a sense, like I'm grateful for like those moments that don't normally happen, you know, in the sense of that we would have never had before. And we were able to just take a moment. And somebody said today, it's like, you can create a new tradition. You eat the pie the night before. I'm like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool. So, something new there.
That's right. Eating the pie beforehand.
Yeah.
Good.
And I mean, I can go on with multiple lists, but I'm really grateful too and thankful for the amount of volunteers and people we have that are coming in to One Life Church, not just physically, but also virtually. People are showing up. I was looking at Tim and Kathy Hess show up every week on our online experience at our 11 o'clock on our website, and they kind of man the chat room and they talk to people and they pray with people, and I think that's so beautiful, and I love knowing that people want to be a part of that, and the other people are showing up and becoming part of that community. And then here on this past Sunday, we had multiple people that were out due to either close contacts or maybe someone in their household testing positive. And so having more people just step in and help out to make our services happen, not because we think our services have to happen, but we genuinely believe that it's an opportunity for us to help people trust and follow Jesus. And the amount of people that still value that mission is cool and important, and I'm really thankful for that.
Absolutely. And that kind of takes one of mine, but I can build on that.
Okay.
I find myself increasingly grateful for the kind of people that it's easy to take for granted because they're so reliable and they have been for so long. And again, it kind of goes back to that thing. You can pay attention to the one light bulb that's out, or you can look at the 99 that are on. And I see that in the church world. Yes, there's problems and challenges, and some people leave, or some people do this or that or the other thing. But I always have to remind myself that I'm surrounded constantly, and I have been. I've been doing this for a really, really long time. I've always been surrounded by people who are as faithful as the sunrise. I mean, they're just an ongoing year after year, year after year, year after year. And that's easy to take for granted, which I hate that, because you don't want to take people for granted. You certainly don't want to take advantage of them. But that's come into bold relief in this season, especially, that you're walking in. And our, like you said, our volunteers, to get services going. I mean, they get there. I have to get here early. I get here at 6:45, but there's a lot of people already here when I walk in the door, and they're already up and running and doing things. And people forget that and maybe not realize that. You know, what if that were all taken away? So that's one of the things that I genuinely am grateful for, and just people in my life that I got it right before we started the podcast. I got a text from an old friend of mine that was just thinking of me and said, "Hey, I've been thinking of you. You're on my heart, and I've been praying for you today." And I was like, wow. And this is one of those people that's just always been there, and theoretically will always be. And it's easy to overlook that in the midst of the problems. But the other thing we were talking about with our staff, I do have to say, as I look back over the weekend, the 4 days, the thing that I became most grateful for, and now that I've had kids, and I know this goes away, so it's not always going to be here, it was with my grandchildren. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old grandchild, and the 3-year-old is now old enough to do the things I forgot I used to do, is old enough to play the imaginary games. And I love the imaginary games where he'll say, okay, but he calls me Baba, and he says, Baba, now you be the monster and I'll be the superhero. and then we'll do our little fake fight and all that, and then he'll turn around and he'll say, now I'll be the monster, you be the superhero, and we will do that 25 times in a row, because he never gets tired of it. It's just and my commitment is that I'm not going to get tired of it either. I'm going to repeat it as many times as he wants. And it took me back to when my kids were that way, and they're not 3 anymore. They haven't asked me to play those kind of games in a while. It's been a while, but someone is now. And I thought, there's a lot of things going on in life. I'd rather be different and all that, but this is just gold stuff, and that it's in a season right now that he's there and he's doing that kind of thing, and it's a blast. And I'm just, and even time I get even a little down, I'll picture him in my head saying, hey, you be the monster, I'll be the superhero.
That's amazing.
Like, all right, I'm in, man. It's good stuff.
It's great. And we generally would love to hear some of the things that you're grateful for, and share those with people wherever you're listening or watching. Use the comment section, or you can email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org, or you can go to the One Life Anywhere Facebook group, just search One Life Anywhere, and pop in there and utilize that as well, because I think that's what's important right now. That's something that I think that could genuinely help all of us to continue to see the other things that other people are grateful for in their own lives. So
Yeah, absolutely. And just on the series, just finishing up, we're going to be talking about the little things. We're just going to remind everybody to notice the little things. But like this past Sunday, we talked about faith. So we are going to be talking about the big things in the Bible that from Jesus' life that we ought to be grateful for and we need to remember. And we're going to be talking about hope. We're going to be talking about other things as we approach Christmas and the eternal things that we often overlook is kind of the idea that we can be grateful for.
Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming. Can't wait. It's
and we're still in Luke. We
are.
in the book of Luke.
At the pace we're going in, we'll be there until about 2025 is my estimate.
It's a good book, It
is
Some
a good
things
book.
happen
That's
in
right.
it,
What are you going to do? Argue with it? Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, Brett, thanks for hanging out. It's
Hey,
good to be back on the
Always
podcast.
That's right.
I'd love to get some guests back on, but it's kind of a tough time to bring some people in, and we want to maybe even do some people virtual phone calls and things like that. We can figure that out.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah, it's going to happen.
Awesome. Again, well, thanks you guys for listening. Thank you for being part of this conversation, and we will see you again next time.